Welcome to The Change, a podcast about the changes in life that shake, break, and make us. I'm Laura, a 45-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum who has until recently always loved change.
And I'm Cathy, a 53-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum, and change is actually my kryptonite. We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia on which this podcast is recorded and recognise the continuing connections to lands, waters and communities.
We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and elders past and present.
Hey Laura.
Hey Cathy, how are you?
I'm not too bad. How about you?
Yeah, coming to you from the usual chaotic scene that is my current life. Just moved rooms, trying to find a space to record in peace and quiet, but I think we've got there. And I miss my she shed.
Yes, well, I can well understand because our listeners won't have seen your she shed, but I saw your she shed, and it was a very lovely space to be able to run away and
it's my little lady retreat.
Yes, and set your decks up and do your records or do your writing, whatever it was.
Yeah, so it was very separate to our main house, which was a very, very fortunate that we built it just prior to COVID. But anyway, now we don't have the luxury of that, or I don't have the luxury of that space since we've been evacuated. And it's been a bit of a working out where I can record podcasts and work from home in. And just not quite as much space in a little townhouse. But anyway, working through it, getting there.
You'll be right.
Here we are.
So what have we got today?
Well, today, Cathy, it's just you and I. And I really wanted to talk about, there's a couple of themes, but the broader theme, I think, is dealing with the subject, very tricky subject of weight loss, especially in midlife, right? Because it's something that we talk about, but at the same time are not really supposed to talk about. But I feel like that's really changed a lot. And what's prompted this particular theme for today is the TV show. Well, it's two things, actually. The TV show Fit for TV, which is currently showing on Netflix, all about those early 2000s shows. The Biggest Loser, which was shown here in Australia, its own version, but started over in the US. And kind of secondary to that is this, I noticed Serena Williams is now advertising a GLP-1 drug.
Wow, okay.
Yes, and she has been, I guess, the latest in a line of celebrities that has come out quite openly to talk about her weight loss journey and how successful this injectable drug has been for her. I don't know whether it's Mounjaro or Ozempic or one of those. And this is such an interesting kind of, I feel like we're at this weird juncture in time. We've just come through a very long period maybe where there's been a lot of body positivity and you don't ask people's weight or talk about weight loss. And I feel like, but that conversation, perhaps with the advent of Ozempic and also skinny talk and young people aspiring to become heroin chic level of skinny, like back in the early Y2K era that we had to kind of live through. It's just like this really interesting time. Have you watched Fit for TV? Maybe do you want to start by telling us a little about your thoughts on that TV show itself and what the premise is, maybe for anyone who hasn't watched it yet on Netflix?
Yeah, so I actually have, randomly not knowing that we were going to talk about this today. So yes, for those who are just joining Laura and I, you'll understand that we are often chaotic in our planning as well as our lives, but we often have quite nice synchronicity. I was trying to work out the word.
Yeah, that's true.
Synchronicities in that we will have watched a similar show or sent each other similar links to similar things. But I actually watched Fit for TV last week and I binge watched it in one whole go. And I can remember when it first went on, I was like, I just didn't know where it was going to go. And I was like, maybe I'll just watch one episode. But the whole premise really hooked me in. But I can't say that the same for the show that it was based on, Biggest Loser. I was never really hooked on Biggest Loser because I found the premise of that show quite uncomfortable. And I did find that I felt that they were poking fun at people who were not this beautiful, didn't meet this beautiful aesthetic, whether it was, and I mean,
It was quite visually insulting, wasn't
it
it?
really
Like
was.
the sense that these poor people were being put through
Well, and
boot camp
I
style
mean, yeah,
challenges.
and let's be honest, like all of these people, they voluntarily signed up. Okay. So no one was forced to sign up. They chose to sign up. And obviously they were at a point in their life where they felt that they wanted to make quite dramatic changes in their lives. I didn't find it just visually confronting. I found it like quite insulting in some of the challenges as well. And they did actually, well, at least a couple of the contestants addressed this. And I think one of the hosts or two of the hosts, the American hosts, actually addressed it in the doco, that some of the challenges that were not fitness-based challenges were actually quite, well, they were insulting, let's be honest.
Yeah, they were
They were
cruel as
cruel.
well. Yeah.
These people, for anyone who hasn't seen The Biggest Loser, were they were taken away from their families, they were essentially cut off from the outside world. All, anything that could possibly distract them from the task at hand, which was all about weight loss. And it was about eating the least amount of calories that they could sustain themselves and exercising for hours and hours and hours a day. I think they were talking on the doco around 6 hours a day of quite intense exercise on approximately 800 calories a day, which is
nothing.
Starvation levels.
Yeah.
Even the doctor, they had one of the medical advisors, he was firmly against that. He made it known to the producers that he had issues with that. He had issues with some of the challenges that they did with the contestants. And the premise of the show was essentially who could be the biggest weight loss loser, not loser as in personality loser, but the biggest weight loss loser over X amount of time. And they won $250,000.
Yeah, it was a massive cash prize.
Big cash
back
prize.
then, still big now, but yeah.
So it was a big cash prize, and it was all centered around being the smallest version of yourself. And the documentary, obviously, it was based out of the US, so they were talking to US contestants, and I think there was a figure of, 300 to 400 contestants that they had on I think it was 15 seasons or 14 seasons.
Even more, yeah.
14 seasons of the US show. So a significant number of people. And after the first season, the casting calls for contestants to go on the show were overwhelming. They had thousands of people turning out to casting calls, because obesity levels in the US at the time were, I think it was 35% was what they quoted on the show. Those obesity levels, interestingly, they showed a graph at the very end in the last episode, have risen. They haven't gone backwards. Right. They haven't changed. They didn't reduce. They've actually gotten higher. So,
and I think that's interesting. Really interesting point you bring up there, because a lot of the contestants on the show lost extreme amounts of weight because, as you say, they were put under quite intense circumstances that you wouldn't have in a normal life. They weren't raising their kids, they weren't working, they were purely focused on weight loss. And then surprise, surprise, they went back to their real lives, and the temptations that we have in life and just their metabolism probably returned to a normal kind of base level. They started putting on weight. So a lot of the people that they interviewed, Danny Cahill being the main one, who was the winner of season 8, like he lost hundreds of pounds.
He was I think they said the highest overall
percentage
weight
loss. And now he's heavier than he was at the start of his journey, which, he doesn't go into detail, but I think a lot of the contestants that have previously struggled with their weight are shown to still be struggling. Although interestingly, a couple of them did admit to having used weight loss injections and that they have managed to maintain, I assume, while still on those injections, a slightly smaller body size. But I think there's a few things, isn't there, that the documentary just shows that this TV was pretty kind of troubling. But also, and there was other examples. Do you remember in the UK? I remember watching one called Secret Eaters, and that was also deeply offensive, I think, to people of bigger body sizes, where they filmed them eating and then would watch them and send them home, but essentially would kind of, again, weigh them at the beginning, weigh them at the end. It was very much about their number and shaming them for eating. Then there was super size versus super skinny. That was another British one where they put a bigger bodied person against someone who had probably an eating disorder and made them kind of battle it out. I guess the skinny person had to put weight on, the bigger person had to lose weight. And it was the shame associated with being bigger was always much greater. I mean, that's me watching as an audience member. And I think some of the interesting things looking back now at these shows, like we know even then we weren't stupid. Like you said, you watched that show, you found it uncomfortable, and you know if you put someone in a health retreat, of course they're going to lose weight. Like, of course, we weren't stupid then either. But I think what's changed is that TV has changed. There has to be more accountability in the way that people are treated when they go on TV. We're not as kind of open to this like fat shamey style. I don't know. It was like a circus in lots of ways, wasn't it? And then, we're staring at the people in a car crash TV sense that I don't think we'd get away with that style of TV anymore because there's been changes in law apart from anything else and legislation around TV. But at the same time, the key points of shame around being overweight and society accepting you and making you feel like a winner, because Biggest Loser being a play on word, of course, when you're skinny and in the smallest possible version of yourself is still a major problem, as is shown by the kind of huge uptake of Ozempic and Mounjaro, but not necessarily equaling less obesity because we're not maybe dealing with some of these poor, unhappy, people who are going through who knows what, reasons for weight changes, lifestyle, big picture stuff, and the fact that Americans just think they just want to go on TV, and it's the same everywhere, and kind of solve their problems or change their life and use TV and a short fix to what is probably a longer term, much bigger problem. I just find it's just so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting from a social policy or sociology, like that kind of perspective. I actually just think it's a really sad indictment of society across the board that, we really do value as a society. And I think that there still is this very inherent bias towards skinny, beautiful people at all costs. And if you are skinny, beautiful, no wrinkles, and you look aesthetically pleasing as whatever that is, then you'll be successful. But if you don't meet whoever's ridiculous beauty standards, then you're not successful, you're not pretty enough, you're not skinny enough, you're not enough, and you just take up too much space. And I struggle with that. I struggle with that on so many levels because I struggle with it because I fundamentally do not believe that size or beauty are your inherent worth. I struggle with my own inherent worth on a whole different level. It's not because I am larger or I'm smaller. And when I say that I am larger, I am actually a very average size 12 to 14 most of the time. But I have one part of my body that is challenging to fit into clothes at times, and it's my upper arms. And there are times when I am looking at buying size 18 to 20 shirts to fit my arms, my upper arms, into clothing, or into the dress or into the shirt or whatever it is. but then the rest of the piece of clothing does not fit me and is ridiculous on me, looks like I'm wearing someone else's clothes because my upper arm is larger and the rest of my body is significantly smaller than that. So and I'm not going to for 1 second compare that small frustration that I have to people with larger bodies, because it's a tiny frustration. But I really struggle with that. Society tells us our inherent worth needs to come from how we look. And I think shows like The Biggest Loser, the Extreme Makeover shows, and they were all about, plastic surgery.
Oh, like The Swan. Do you remember
Well,
that
there was
one?
The Swan, and there was one called The Extreme Makeover, and I think they did like super amounts of exercise, and then at the end of it they did like massive amounts of plastic surgery, and they did this massive reveal, and but has it really changed your life? Has it made your life better? And I have the same feelings around, all the GLP-1 drugs as well, because I feel like they are a quick solution, same as, there was a period in the sort of mid to like mid 2000s where weight loss surgery seemed to be
like bariatric
kind of surgery was the solution of choice from some aspects of either the media or maybe some aspects of the medical community. And I know a number of people who had weight loss surgery, and I don't think that any one of those people who had weight loss surgery is still the same weight. Actually, I know one person who had weight loss surgery and is still the smaller size that they wanted to get to. Every single other person that I know that has had weight loss surgery is larger than they were when they first had the surgery. And I know of some people who have had to have other types of surgery to fix issues that have arisen from the weight loss surgery, because they got larger and that caused other issues. And so that has caused them lifelong problems anyway. So having this, and I'm not saying that is a quick fix, because I don't believe it is. I believe it is a solution that was used, but I know people that have had to have reconstructive surgery of their, intestines and stomachs and things like that, because it has caused significant issues for them. So I don't think that there is a solution. I don't think there is a quick fix. And I think that what it is honest conversations with your doctor. I personally don't believe that we should be looking at somebody and their size and making any judgments on whether they are healthy or unhealthy. I was probably more unhealthy in my late teens and early 20s when I lived on a diet of champagne and cigarettes than I am now when I eat whole foods and, have regular meals and exercise and occasionally and don't drink alcohol. But in my late teens and early 20s, I was very skinny, very tiny, small body. Now, I'm a very average size, and society would tell me that my average size is too large, but actually my medical tests would say otherwise. But I did have the biggest fluctuation in my medical tests when I went into menopause. So that's when my blood pressure started to increase and my cholesterol started to increase, and so there were some issues there. Get onto the appropriate levels of HRT that were right for me, managed with my GP. I didn't need the blood pressure medication and I didn't need the cholesterol medication. So for me, it was more of a hormone issue. And yes, you can definitely treat cholesterol with cholesterol medication and you can treat blood pressure with blood pressure medication, but I chose a different path and those things are managed differently. But Yeah, I don't know. I feel really conflicted, and I did watch the show in one sitting from start to finish, and I still came away with a very conflicted feelings about it. An interesting comment that one of the producers made was that if he was to ever do the show again, he would not put up a prize, which I thought was interesting. You know, it was like more around that the prize should
Doing
be
it for yourself,
changing
yeah.
your life rather than for a cash prize.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that these shows, the quick fix. I mean, and to play devil's advocate a bit, because I might as well with the GLP-1s. I think that there obviously are cases where they are very helpful for people and they have changed people's lives, especially obviously those people with diabetes. And I know some people. I listened to an episode actually of a podcast locally, and there were two women talking about their experiences, and they both have used Mount Jaro and were finding it very helpful after lifelong, issues with weight. So I know that there are, of course, going to be people that might be listening here and thinking we're being judgmental, and we're not. And I think it's more about the kind of, the societal pressure on women, especially once you get to a certain age, to look a certain way, and the reasons why you might feel it is necessary for you to lose big amounts of weight. I think the other thing I was interested in is Jamila Jamil did a post on Instagram about Serena Williams, who is currently selling a GLP-1 drug. And I think she makes a really good point about the fact that these miracle drugs, weight loss drugs, do come under price. And like you were just saying about gastric bypass surgery, there are a lot of side effects with the drugs. And when you see someone beautiful and rich like Serena Williams, with a ripped body, who was obviously once an athlete, did struggle with her weight once she stopped playing competitive tennis, advertising this drug, you're kind of being sold this this dream physique, of which her physique is very different to probably average the average person. And I guess what Jamil is saying, that most people don't have access to the doctors and the support teams that Serena Williams would have, and they perhaps are not taking into account a lot of the side effects, and that they're not getting the constant follow-up that you need, because a lot of, like we've said, that once you come off these drugs, there are a lot of ongoing issues, and if things go wrong for you, you might not have the access to the support team like someone like Serena Williams does, who has billions of dollars in the bank account to help her out. So there is definitely, it's a bit of a funny one, isn't it? Celebrities pushing weight loss. I guess they've been doing it for years in their own, in different ways. You think about Oprah and Ricky Lake, and whenever they lost lots of weight, they always sold
Weight
lots of covers.
Weight
Yeah.
Watchers or Gym
Weight
Craze or
Watchers, Slim Fast. There's always been celebrities linked to that because people want that aspirational goal. But when you consider a celebrity might have a personal chef, they might have 24/7 PT access, etc. It's a very different. And for us, just regular Joes and Janes here trying to do our best, it's just not the same experience. And I think that those TV shows played into this, dream of you too can be skinny like the celebrities in Hollywood, blah, 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 but not really following it up with any aftercare for the contestants. That's something they also talk about on the show, is how they were not looked after once they returned to their normal lives, which I think was a huge issue for a lot of them. Had they have been supported, that might have been better for them in the long term. And also, like this, like we've said, weight gain is so linked to so many different things. Maybe it's to do with your poverty, your education. I think about ultra processed foods that are a huge problem in the US, and the companies that produce them that make billions of dollars off people's, lack of understanding perhaps about what they're eating. But then also, how expensive is it to go to Whole Foods and buy some kale and then spend 3 hours making a nice bloody kale and cannellini bean recipe? It can be hard. And if who wants to spend their time when they're working 12 hours, to then come home and do that? They don't, and the kids won't eat it anyway. So you're going to default to Macca's, or because life is hard and busy, and there are just so many factors, aren't there, as to how and why people put on weight. And it's often not because they're stupid. It's not because they're, there's something wrong with them. It's because they're not ultra rich and they don't have access to the lifestyle that some people would put on TV and make it seem like it's very achievable. It's just not. And I think particularly for busy women in midlife, when you're adding in the hormones, like you say, it's really becomes a huge challenge for us to maintain the societal expectations of this youthful body. Like, did you see the treatment of Jennifer Love Hewitt when
Oh,
she came
yeah.
out on the red
I mean,
carpet?
I
Yeah.
didn't see a lot of it, but I saw the picture and then I saw a bit of the rhetoric and I was like, I actually don't want to buy into this, so I'm just not going to.
No, it was gross. There's Jennifer Love Hewitt, an actress from I think the late 90s. I
Mm.
can't even think what show she was
Ghost
in.
Whisperer
Very
was a big one for her.
okay,
Ghost
that's
Whisperer, I
right.
think.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. And she was real pretty, and they had this photo of her when she was, I think someone said she was 15 in the photo, like skinny, like
And
a 15-year-old
they were
girl.
doing it was a reunion show. So that's why she was even on the
She was,
red
that's right.
carpet. And I can't think of what the show, it wasn't Ghost Whisperer, but it was another one of the shows that she was, where she was one of the
In.
main characters, and it was a reunion show, and they were like, and there was,
Was it for I Know What You Did Last Summer? Was
that
it
was it.
that movie?
Yep, that was,
Was it? Yeah,
and
I think,
yes.
yes.
And what the rhetoric that I saw were people saying, "Oh my goodness, she's a woman in her midlife who has had 3 children. Heaven forbid she look like a woman in
No,
midlife
she looked great. She
who
was
has had
just,
3."
yeah, normal looking.
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to say that I know that some people do enjoy going to the gym and they enjoy exercise, and some people will say and come at us and say you can lose weight if you choose to make those changes in your life, and that you if you go to the gym and you prioritize meal planning and yes, it is doable. All of those things are doable. I guess my question is it sustainable? And at different periods in our lives, different things are more sustainable than they are at other periods of our lives. Is all I guess I would say. When we're young, no children, often we can spend, you can go to the gym every day, or you can, and that's not to say that you have to go to the gym to lose weight or to be healthy. We can walk. There are things we can do that are often free as well. But yeah, I mean, yes, we should all attain to eat better, move more, not have the sedentary lifestyles that we have. But yeah, I don't think that those shows ever did any good for us, and they certainly played into the endemic of
Like fat shaming
fat
people.
shaming and all of those things.
It was playing into those stereotypes that, to be overweight is bad, to be thin is good. And this is what we're going to help you reach the goal of being thin,
Yeah,
but not really kind of explaining necessarily the broader picture of these individuals. And and we are all
yeah,
individuals. And like you say, you might carry more weight in your arms. I carry more weight in my bum, like always have done. And I'm a straight size, woman who has weight stayed relatively the same, and I have nothing to complain. I would never complain about it. But and even in that, and even saying that, I've still always felt like I could probably just use a few more kilos, because that's the soup that we swim in
yeah.
when it comes to being a woman
And
ever. We've always supposed to be a skinnier version of
yeah.
ourselves somehow.
And I wonder whether that is so that we take up less space just in the
Yes.
world in general, so that when we're less loud, we're less impactful. I don't know if it's playing
Yeah.
into those bigger stereotypes. I don't know. And also, I'm not going to throw any shade on anyone who reaches out and gets help that they need to get help, because I know some people very close to me and other people as well who will reach out to their GPs or weight loss specialists to get help that they need to get help. And I think that's admirable as well. Like if you want
That's
the
right. If
help
it's
and
restricting you.
you
Yep.
get you reach out and you do it under medical advice and all of those things, I think that's really important to do it. And if you're doing it for the right reasons, but who am I to determine what is the right reason for somebody else?
That's it. It's such a complicated thing, isn't it? And I don't think that we're going to obviously not answer it in our
No.
podcast, but I do think that, like we said at the very beginning, trends do come and go in terms of body size. We've had, the 1950s kind of siren-esque
Mhm.
Marilyn Monroe versus the very skinny, twiggy models of the 1960s, and then again the sort of sporty 80s aerobics phase. Supermodels were, like athletic, but they were like, tall and, Amazonian. Then it
Mm.
went to kind of heroin chic Kate Moss,
Which
and then it's
is,
bounced back
ugh,
to Kardashians with the big bottoms.
yeah.
Well, it's big, I mean, not hardly, but so there's always been this trending, but it's really only been for women, to be honest, until very recently have the men, with perhaps the advent of TikTok, felt more inclined to look after their appearances and their bodies because they're seeing themselves reflected back in ways with these athletic men that we've been seeing in advertising and on in the big screen for, well, more than forever, really. Women's value has been caught up, like you say, so that we take up less room. If our value is all about how we look and we spend all this time and money thinking about our physical appearance, we can spend a lot less time actually doing and speaking and learning.
Mm.
So it kind of keeps us nice in a nice little neat box away from, away from the men in the room sitting around the table, because we're always so worried about our waist circumference or whatever it is, which is, we know, is bullshit. But it's hard because you get reinforced, don't you? If
Mm.
you've ever lost weight, someone goes, "Oh, you look great,
Yeah.
you've lost weight." Or after you have a baby, "Oh, you snap back into
Yeah.
your jeans," or whatever shit that you get, told you have to do. And I think too, what's interesting is, now that we've kind of moved out of, I think there was a period of body positivity where there was a lot more diversity, and there was bit of a movement towards advertising campaigns, including women, particularly of different sizes, in their catwalk shows, embracing a bigger physique. It was a very brief period, but I feel like it was there, it existed.
I think
And now we're back to
I
not
think
the
there
skinny
still
tall
has been a
thing.
bit of a, like, from that, we have seen some positive
Mm,
changes in that,
mm,
general designers will, mainstream designers will have an expanded range. They tend to go up
mm,
to sort of a 22, 24, which is a much larger range than once
mm,
upon a time they used to have, which I think is a positive thing because sometimes it doesn't matter what you do, or, you just, the weight doesn't shift because we all,
mm,
like, if we were all meant to be a perfect size 8, Australian
mm,
8, so whatever that is, worldwide, I don't know. But if we
mm,
were all meant to be the same size and shape and all the rest of it, we actually would be, like, genetically,
mm,
that would be how we are. But you look around the world, and genetically the world is, we have different people, different backgrounds, different environments that we live in, and yeah, so I don't know, I find, just generally, I find weight loss and weight loss shows and extreme makeover shows and things like that, I find them very problematic in
mm,
general, because I don't think, as you say, that is, any of that is actually attainable for the average person.
mm,
And yes, if I think about celebrities promoting things, I also find that problematic because
mm.
they have access to an awful lot of things that the average person doesn't have.
That's right. And I think really, even though those shows are assigned to history, like The Biggest Loser in this documentary, recommend you go watch it if you are interested in this subject at all, because it does take you back to a time where it was much more in your face. But also it was a time where a lot of what content we were consuming was on TV. Now, most of the content is on our phones and obviously on our devices and online. So while the TV networks might have more legal restrictions about the type of TV show they produce, the kind of follow up they have to provide, and the aftercare for contestants, etc., has changed. Go onto TikTok and see, the different kinds of content happening there, and you'll realize that this culture has just moved across
Mm.
to a different platform. So you still, I think it's, I think there have been changes. I do think having conversations like this proves that there have,
Mm.
because perhaps we wouldn't have had this chat so been able to have it so easily back in 2005 when, Biggest Loser was on TV. I think that we are more savvy about things and we take into account the greater opinions, and we're more considered maybe, but that doesn't mean that the sort of overarching societal stuff has changed. There's still definitely skinny still wins, doesn't it, in
Yeah.
a lot of the way we view women, which is sad. There's still a lot of work yet to be done, I think.
100%. After that heavy topic, I feel,
Yes.
let's, I suppose, lighten the load. Well, maybe it probably won't. Let's just do a bit of a wrap of where we're up to. We're wrapping season 4 for anyone who hasn't worked that out. We have had some amazing guests on. We had Dr. Fatima Khan. We had
Sarah McDonald.
We had Sam, our audio producer. We had Sarah McDonald. We had Sarah Megginson. We had Claire Mason. We've had some
Jane Hollier.
Yeah, really fabulous guests who were incredibly patient with us. Let's be honest, we had a tricky start to season 4.
And a delayed start, thanks to me. Sorry.
Well, no, not yet. I'm not agreeing. We did have a delayed start, but it's not your fault.
No, my house. I didn't push my house down the hill.
No, you did not push your house down the hill. So we want to thank all of our guests that we had on. But Laura, give us a little bit. You just alluded to why our start was a bit delayed. Give us a little bit of an update. Is there any update? Where do we find you?
Look, not really. I think when we started the season, I was living in an Airbnb, essentially. It was a holiday house of a friend's parents, which we were very grateful for. We didn't have any of our things with us apart from our essentials, and it was a very stressful time. And it hasn't lessened. We're now living in a new house back in our suburb where our old house still remains, even though it's now sadly not looking in great shape. So the landslip happened back in May. We're now, where are we? Coming towards almost the end of August. And yeah, not much has changed other than our house has got worse, but our personal situation and has settled down in the sense that we have a place to be. The kids are back at school. The routine is essentially back to where it was, and we will just have to wait and see if our insurance helps us with the next phase. And we've been meeting and lobbying with local MPs and just keeping an eye on the whole situation, really, and waiting to see what happens. Can we fix our house? We don't yet know. We think it's probably unlikely. Will it be demolished? Probably, we don't know. Investigation and geotechnical work is currently being done, so we'll wait and see what the findings are of that. It's going to be at least 4 months. When we start season 5, I hope I'll have some more information and we'll know where we're at. But overall, look, I'm trying to just keep on keeping on for myself, for the kids, and staying as sane as possible. That's the summary in a nutshell.
It still sounds like an awful lot. It's
a lot going on.
Like it is almost a full-time job, keeping on top of all of those things.
Yes, the brain cells have not been working perhaps as good as they have been. Could that be perimenopause as well? It's hard to know, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Cathy, how are you wrapping this series up? Season 4, how are you feeling?
How am I feeling? Look, I'm sad because when we come to the end of a season, it means that we stop our regular weekly catch-ups, which is something that I always look forward to, even if it is only a brief grabbed 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there. And that has obviously been quite tricky to do over the last season. And not just because of you. I've had some mental health challenges, so I've been quite up and down. Hopefully I'm kind of finding my way out the other side. I still feel quite tired and quite burnt out. I guess I would, if I went through the clinical diagnosis of a burnout, I'm probably still quite burnt out. But, that is also a process by which I just have to ride out the wave. And and I know that I get to the other side eventually, surrounded by a lot of love and support from family and beautiful friends. So, so that's the way that we find me at the end of season 4.
Gosh,
So hopefully
that's
I will,
life, isn't
you know,
it?
the
Yeah.
sun is shining today, which is
Yeah, same
lovely.
here, which is beautiful. Yeah.
Bit of a change for good old New South Wales, I feel like. It's not
Mm.
just a Sydney town thing. It's East Coast New South Wales has been very, very wet. So, yeah, having sunshine is always balm for the soul for me. So,
It is. And coming towards spring and seeing the flowers and the little blossoms start to bloom, I always feel that little sense of hopefulness that things are about to change. So let's hope it's going to be a better
yeah.
end to the year than it was.
And we're going to take a little break from the pod. We're going to plan some more fabulous guests and come to you for a summer season.
Yay. Can't wait for season 5. Bring it
No,
on.
5 seasons. Can you believe it? Oh,
I know. It's great. We're very excited. Very grateful.
very grateful that we are in this position to be able to bring this to you all.
Yay.
Please keep.
And a big thank you to Sam Thomas, our wonderful producer and guest.
And if you have any guest suggestions, please
Yeah.
email them through to us on
changepod2023@gmail.com.
and or hit us up on the on the gram. That's
Yeah, come follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, we have a goal. We want 1,000 followers by the end of the year. So please
Oh, that'll be amazing.
hit us
Yeah,
up.
let's do it.
Follow it.
Oh, well, thank you all, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks for listening to The Change, a fully independent podcast. Whether you're seeking inspiration, curious about change, or just here for the great banter, we'd love you to make The Change your new go-to podcast.
And even better, send us your voice notes or questions about change. We'll use them on the show. Email us at changepod2023@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at _change_pod. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more on The Change.